Happy Wednesday night. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you, as always, for being with us. We appreciate you. If you have not already, you know the drill. Please subscribe to WDWNT TV for more great content. And, of course, give us a thumbs up as it helps people to find us. Tonight, we've put together the crew that's going to talk about George of the Jungle. If you're wondering who would be willing to talk about George of the Jungle, these are the people who would be willing to do that. Starting, of course, with Desi. How are you?
Hi, all you jungle VIPs.
Ooh, wow. No, wrong movie, but good callback. And Desi, I'm sorry, Desi. Emma.
Watch out for that tree. Hi.
See, I even messed up your intro. So part of the deal is that, we were talking last week. We had our 150th review show. And again, thank you for everyone who's helped make that happen. We had a 150th review show, which was The Greatest Showman. And during that, we also did a post show with our WIGS members. We love the WIGS, our WDWNT Interglobe Society. And during that time when we were talking, we talked a lot about what would you guys like to see coming up on Deep in the Plus. What should we be talking about? And somebody mentioned George of the Jungle. And I had it on my list. It was one that I had thought about before. There's actually a place, if you go to Disney Plus, there's a thing called Throwbacks. And when I went through that, we've done a ton of those already. And it was not because they were in that category. I just, it was movies that somebody went, this means something to me. And this movie means something to somebody. I'm going to go ahead and say it means the most on this panel to Desi. Desi, you want to tell the people why this means the most to you? It's your most treasured movie?
First off, I didn't even know this was on Disney Plus until last week. So, but I was very happy and excited to hear about it. It was my go-to babysitting movie when I was a younger teenager, and also I got married where this movie was filmed, so that's got a special place in my heart too.
You just can't have an episode of this show where you don't talk about your wedding. Last week it was like,
Apparently
oh, Zac
not.
Efron was at my wedding, and we're like, oh, tell us that story. And now it's this. So, you know what? And in chat, when you were talking about this was your go-to babysitting movie, I had to ask you, was it your go-to watch it when you were babysat, or was it you were babysitting and you would watch it? You went, no, it was definitely when I was babysitting. Emma, what does this one mean to you, if anything?
Well, not much. I think it was one of those ones that I was probably shown as a kid and just forgot about. But this for me really felt like my first time watching it. And I've kind of always wanted to watch it because I knew it was kind of funny. Who doesn't love Brendan Fraser? So, I was excited.
You trip through Disney Plus and you see this and you stop and go, yes, this is what we're watching tonight. You know what?
I
And
didn't
again,
look through this throwbacks.
so a lot of people have nostalgia for movies. And last week when we talked about The Greatest Showman, a lot of people have nostalgia for that movie. You have nostalgia for Disney movies. Pixar movies, obviously. We've got a lot of flack on our Pixar movies because a lot of people have individual love for individual movies because of when you saw them in your life. Not so much, and Desi, you and I did a ranking of Star Wars movies and the same thing, but not so much for I want to say Marvel because Marvel's fairly new. It's been around for 11, 12 years, and so people are going to probably be a little nostalgic about that. But really, Disney movies in particular, people watch them as a kid. I know that I watched Tron as a kid and loved it, and I would not necessarily tell people go watch that movie because about how it holds up later on. So George of the Jungle must have been that for people. I think there were probably people that wore out the VHS tape in the clamshell, or they watched it all the time. It's funny to me how many jungle movies there are in the Disney canon though too, because like Jungle to Jungle with
They were all filmed where I got married.
stop it. Hold that comment until we do Jungle to Jungle, and then you can talk about that then. But this is one I will tell you that when I saw this, I saw it as part of a double feature. You know what a double feature is? You pay for one and you watch two. Okay, with Hercules. I don't know why.
Oh,
I don't know why.
they came out
But
around the same time, didn't they?
yeah, so I literally saw this. I think it was probably bait to make people go see this movie. Um, but yeah. So let me back up a second, and before we talk about the movie itself, I want to talk about Brendan Fraser. And you
That's right.
talked about this a little bit before the show. You were like, let's make sure not to call him Fraser, because what did you say? What was the example that you gave, Desi?
Frasier was a TV show that came out around the same time as this movie. But no, it's Fraser, like razor, and you do not shave your face with a razor. So it's Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, and so here's the thing
Well, I
about
guess Ron,
Brendan.
it doesn't look like you do a lot of shaving on your face at all.
You know, can we not do this?
It just got
Um,
shady up in here real fast.
let's talk. Let's
Okay, you don't
for,
shave your legs with a razor.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so when this movie was early on in his career, he was just nominated, I believe, for The Whale, which is the
Yep.
movie that he's in. So here's a back then and a now situation
Oh,
with Brendan, and man, he was cut.
he's still handsome.
I didn't say he wasn't. I'm
Come
just
on.
saying he was cut. Like,
Hmm.
this was that was the thing that kept that struck me as I was rewatching this movie. I was like, man, he really went for it in this movie. And they talk about that a little bit, that he said he couldn't remember his PIN number because he was so like basically
Yep.
starved at this point,
He was
trying
so
to
hungry. He was
trying to fit into the
delirious.
loincloth, I guess. But then I feel like he sort of got typecast because he was in Encino Man.
Encino Man came out first. His first two
But
movies were
I'm just
School
saying, like,
Ties and Encino Man.
but Encino Man and George of the Jungle, he has a somewhat similar look and vocabulary. I'm
I
just throwing
guess.
that out there. But I guess my question about him is he was, he led like the Mummy series of movies.
Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
but then before the whale thing happened, he was doing like the Doom Patrol on the DC streaming service before it went to HBO Max, and wearing a
Hmm.
helmet and being, I don't know. I feel like he's one of those guys that's been around forever. He's done a ton of stuff, but I feel like he never really cracked that ceiling.
Hmm.
You agree with that, Emma? Because I mean,
Yeah,
again,
I think that's fair. I mean, I feel like the Mummy, like that was pretty popular, but yeah, and like I remember him most from the Looney Tunes movie when I was a kid. Um, so, and that's the thing, like even that wasn't really that popular of a kids movie. So like he's done a lot of feature films, but he's not like top tier of like Hollywood A-listers, you know? That doesn't mean I don't enjoy his work. I think it's just the films that he was in just didn't happen to be as popular as other things at the time.
yeah, I mean
He
that's a good
through a
a good way to put it.
really he went through a really rough patch with some legal problems and with some health problems, and that's why
Hmm.
he stepped back for a little bit. But he didn't want to give it up completely, which is why he, kept going for like these little bit roles where, at least he was still working even if he didn't have the
Hmm.
time to commit to a full movie.
Right.
But I mean, again, let's talk about like Encino Man, School Ties, Son-in-Law. Man, he must have loved working with Pauly Shore. Um, Airheads, The Scout, Glory Days, Mrs. Winterbourne. Looking back through here, he was, again, did George of the Jungle, this movie in 1997, Blast from the Past, and then The Mummy was 1999. Dudley Do-Right, which that's interesting to me that he would do Dudley Do-Right, because Dudley Do-Right
Right?
and George of the Jungle are both Jay Ward products. That's almost like, I don't know, why would you do that and put, say, Chris Evans as Johnny Storm and Captain America? You wouldn't do that. Oh, no, you might do that. That's true. You might do that. Bedazzled, that was an interesting movie with
I love that movie.
Elizabeth
I had
Hurley,
that on
and then,
VHS as well.
of course, you did. Um, and then, I remember him from that episode of Scrubs where he played, her brother, and he was in and he was taking photos, and then he passed away within the episode. But I thought that was a very moving episode that he did. And then I'm sorry, Scrubs was what year? That was 2002. Adventure at the Center of the Earth, Journey to the Center of the Earth. Like, again, he's had a ton of stuff that he's been a part of, and a lot of it is stuff that, going back to the whole nostalgia thing, is stuff that you watched when you were a kid. And again, to your point, things that you watched, right?
Man, this movie, Blast from the Past, Bedazzled were all on repeat in my house. Loved Brendan Fraser, sorry.
Already.
He wasn't like in my locker, but I still loved all of his movies.
Yeah. Well, and Rosita's in chat saying that I liked Bedazzled. I did too. I thought that was a good movie. But because of Elizabeth Hurley. So let's go back to George of the Jungle was based on an animated series from Jay Ward, who did Underdog and Bullwinkle and we were just talking about Dudley Do-Right. So basically all the Universal properties that you see over there in Cartoon Lagoon. But he, this was like a big deal. This was not Looney Tunes. This was not Hanna-Barbera. This was the other thing. And this was 1967 that George of the Jungle happened. And that specific crew looked like this. This was the 1967 Tuki Tuki and Ursula and Shep. And honestly, and June Foray, who did the voice of Rocky, and Rocky and Bullwinkle did the voice of Ursula in this one. So the movie that we just saw in the 1997 Disney movie George of the Jungle stays true to this. It uses Shep the elephant and an ape named Ape and Ursula, but I guess you had to keep the continuity there because that's all in the lyrics to the world famous George of the Jungle song. So like you can't like change the lyrics of that one. Like in it says, with the help of his friend an ape named Ape, and then it says then away he'll schlep on his elephant Shep, while Fella and Ursula stay in step. So Fella is what Brendan Fraser calls the character of Ursula in this movie is Fella. Like, hey, Fella, like you're just another dude like me, Fella. That same thing happens in the pilot episode of the 1967 cartoon. I mean, it's very, very faithful to that. But again, it's written in stone here that it has to be because it's in the theme song. And when we were coming on, Desi, you were like, I will not be able to get this theme song out of my head. But don't sing it.
I'm literally dancing to it. Might run out in my head. No, nobody wants to hear me singing it. Emma, hit it.
No, we don't, and it's not that we don't want to hear Emma sing. We just don't want to get the copyright blast that we did with Bluey. That was well worth it. Yeah, it is. It is a bop. You did say that it was a bop. I do want to say a special thanks to Rosita for a super chat. Just want to show my love for Disneyplus and great panel tonight and seeing the movie that made Brendan so hot. Yes. Yeah, I mean, he's the whole package, really.
That part.
I mean, yeah.
He has a wide range. He can go from like a drama like School Ties to a comedy like this to an action movie like The Mummy. I mean, talk about a range.
Yeah, talk about a range.
He's a good actor.
Talk about a range here. Like, yeah, that's absolutely.
You might as well pull up the picture where he's got the full whale outfit on. So.
No, we're not going to do that. But again, thank you, Rosita. Very kind of you. We appreciate the super chat, so thanks a lot. So, again, this was 1967, the original George of the Jungle. So when 1997 comes around, I always am trying to figure out who was like, you know what? We need a live-action George of the Jungle. Like only Disney can do. Right? I mean, this is not their IP. It was one that they obviously had to license to be able to do this. But, in watching it, the first thing my wife says is, well, this is just Tarzan. And, like, how is this not Tarzan? And it kind of is Tarzan. And they even admit that it was supposed to be sort of a spoof on Tarzan. But in the very first episode of that cartoon, he calls Ursula Jane. And I wonder if they were like, oh, we can't get away with that. And then the next episode, he calls her Ursula. And he calls her something else too. And she's like, oh, you can't ever remember my name. So it was like they were thinking about, how do we fix this in post? How do we make it so that that's her name? But Emma, when you're watching this, I mean, that had to like pop out to you that like this is
Oh
sort
yeah.
of Tarzan.
I mean, they even make a joke, right? Like it's written in the script like a Tarzan wannabe. Isn't that what she calls him at one point? Like I thought that was fantastic, and it was kind of genius. And that's not the only nod to other films that we see in the Disney canon either, because they make a Lion King reference at the end, which I think is also hilarious. So I appreciated how tongue-in-cheek it was.
Yeah. No, for sure. Kate brought up, by the way, Gods and Monsters. That was a big movie. So definitely a great actor. I have not seen The Whale, but yeah, at the very end there's the Lion King thing, which Lion King was 1994. This was released in 1997. So obviously there was they had the set, right, so he could just wander over to the set. I'm kidding. It was a drawing. Um, So this one again, I look at it and go, why? Who said, you know what, this is what we need to do? I also feel like this must have been a fairly cheap movie to do because most of the stuff happens in the same place until they go to San Francisco, and there's a division in this movie where when it starts out, we're starting in the jungle and we're meeting Ursula for the first time. And when we're meeting Ursula, played wonderfully by Leslie Mann here, she is, kind of like on an adventure, and not quite the same way that we see Jane in the animated Tarzan, where she's there for research and I mean, this is sort of her being just like she's just wanting to be a part of this. It seems like it's not a true like get to the heart of it
Expedition.
sort of a expedition. So she's playing around with a camera and she's trying to film all this stuff. I guess this was before the ability to post things on Instagram or live stream, and so she's putting all this stuff together, and then she gets an unexpected visit from her hugely rich boyfriend Lyle, played by Thomas Hayden Church, who I never look at, and y'all are the ones who would be able to tell me. I don't look at Thomas Hayden Church and go, "Wow, he's a babe. He's a dream boat. He's right."
I
I
mean,
mean,
compared to Brendan
No.
Fraser, no.
yeah. I mean, like I'm not
But,
gonna say rank them, but like Desi, like when you see Thomas Hayden Church, you go, "That's a looker."
I mean, he's not unattractive. I think, he's fine.
Okay.
He's just not on par with Brendan Fraser. I think maybe for Ursula, it's that he comes from a family with money, which is why her parents really want her to marry him. It could just be pressure from her family, not the attraction she feels with George.
Yeah, Dawn is saying Lyle, who I called Lowell because he was that in Wings. Yeah, Wings. Look it up, kids. Wings was an interesting show. And then Kate was saying Thomas Hayden Church looked like a kid in that movie. Right now, when I think of him, the immediate thing I think of, and I think no one else would, is Sandman from the
Oh
Spider-Man movies.
yeah.
So I mean,
No, my
that's
first
where my
thing is
head goes.
Wings, but
Yeah, yeah, but again, he shows up in this thing in a very un-Thomas Hayden Church role, I feel like, which again makes me go, okay, there's a scene where he goes face first into what is supposed to be elephant poop. What are
yep.
you paying Thomas Hayden Church at this point in his career to show up to be this like, kind of like despicable man who is going to trip and fall into elephant poop? I don't know. I don't know. I'm
Was
sure we
he
could.
ever like a super highly rated actor?
I feel like he
So
was he not? I feel like he had a couple things that was a big deal for him.
I don't
He
know.
has a net worth of
I
20 million
literally
according
can't
to the
think of
internet.
anything.
Oh wow.
I can't think of anything other than Wings and Sandman right now.
hmm
Well, that's probably it then. We're done. Um, so, but again,
Sideways.
Leslie Mann is in this. I think she does a great job. She's usually known for more like kind of like offbeat comedies. She
Hmm.
was, I think she's married to Judd Apatow. So I think that he's
Oh, is she?
basically contracted to put her into every movie that he makes. But I mean, she's usually like the best friend in some of these movies that are coming up. And I know that she was in like the 40-Year-Old Virgin with Steve Carell and
Knocked Up.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So there you go. But so this is a different role for her as well. I mean, and then John Cleese, you've got one of the
Oh
founding
yeah,
members of Monty Python, and he's voicing an intelligent speaking ape.
an ape named Ape.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Again, the
Brilliant
casting,
casting.
chef's kiss. Absolutely, everybody was in their lane in this one. It was great. Um, but so for the first 40 minutes, it's about they're in the jungle. They're talking about this white ape, this great white ape. And they come across, she and Lyle are out, and a lion attacks, and Lyle gets knocked out, and the lion comes out, and here comes George to save her. And right from the beginning, we do the whole watch out for that tree thing. He bangs his head into so many things in this show or in this movie. So he comes out. He's obviously a little bit of a bumbling guy, but he has good intentions to save her. He saves her from the lion, and I can't imagine that in 2023, some of the stuff he did to this lion wouldn't have people lined up to like shame him for it. Like, I mean, it's supposed to be a joke. It's not a real lion, but he's like doing this to the lion and beating it up, and I'm just like, can we even pretend to do that in 2023?
I think we can pretend.
Okay.
Pretend, yes.
Okay.
It did not bother me because it was obviously a CGI lion. If he was doing that with
Wait,
like
what?
a real lion,
I don't know. It was just there was
yeah.
some stuff there that I was like, does this fly?
Yeah.
I don't know. And so then at that point, he saved her. He takes her back to his tree house, and then they kind of after that point they sort of just cut back and forth between, George and Ursula, and then what Lyle's doing with these guides that are there. One of the guides that's there, you made a mention of it in our chat the other day, or Desi, that you recognize one of the gentlemen
Oh yeah.
from there. Do you want to talk about that?
He's the warden from Kilimanjaro Safaris from the pre-show, which is unfortunately not there anymore. But I saw him and I was like, "Is that the guy from?" And
Yeah.
I felt compelled to look it up, and yep, sure enough, that's him.
Yeah, the gentleman's
So I
sitting
know
down on
somebody
the
in
left.
chat earlier said they were surprised there wasn't more representation from this movie in Animal Kingdom. There you go. One of the guides there was the warden at Kilimanjaro.
Hmm.
Well, and I think that the original lion that George beat up is probably also
It's
also
Simba.
there, right? Yeah,
Simba
that's what he
won.
did. That's why he was able to go to Pride Rock, because he beat up Simba. He actually falls on the lion, and then the lion gets up, and then they start to fight.
Hmm.
So again, at this point, this is when she's introduced to him. He takes her, and they're swinging through the woods, and she passes out several times, and he takes her back home, and she sees the talking ape, and that makes her pass out again. And then again, we go back and forth with all these other guys making fun of Lyle, and then what she's doing, and we finally get to a point where they kind of face each other, and he gets shot apparently. Doesn't seem like it's a bad shot sort of a situation, but he gets shot because Lyle thinks he's got his lighter and it's really a gun, and he
Lighter.
gets shot. And so what does she do? You've got all of these people. Some of them you would think have the ability to, I don't know, to help him out or, whatever. But immediately she throws him on a plane and takes him to San Francisco. Because what else are you going to do?
She wants to get him the best medical treatment available.
And it never comes up.
Nope.
I mean, can we at least
Never.
have him sitting in a hospital bed,
And
or in a
where
doctor's
did
office
he get shot?
in the jungle? No, I'm just kidding.
Because on the airplane, I thought it looked like he got shot in the side, but then when they were in San Francisco, it looked like he had a bandage on his head. I don't know.
Yeah, not sure.
I thought he had
I
the bandage on his head the whole time. I could be wrong, but
I don't know.
yeah, I
oh.
feel like that it was his head, but I don't. I mean, obviously, he didn't get shot directly into his head, so it would have been something
Hmm.
where it was like it
Just
grazed him or something
grazed
like that.
off.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's yeah, grazer, Fraser. Like, but though but that's the catalyst though, and it seems like a very weak catalyst to throw him on a plane and take him to San Francisco.
Yeah, I think they were like, we got to make this thing 90 minutes. This is, like as far as like the lesser of however many evils, however many options they had, they were like, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, nobody in this movie dies. They just get really big boo-boos. So you could fall from a high, like, bridge and into rocky depths below, and, you're totally
But he
fine.
made it.
So
He
getting
survived.
shot in the head.
Yeah. Uh, by the way, again, cutting back to, I mean, this him smacking him in the face, and then doing the wrestling move, and the pile. Like,
Which I appreciate now.
I know, you're all down with that now. Um, so anyway, they take him to San Francisco at about the 40-minute mark. It's about halfway through. I pay attention to these things, and at that point, it now becomes a fish out of water movie. Because it's like, oh, he's never been to the big city. He doesn't know things about, like, you know, clothes and what to wear and what not to wear and what to do and what
Or
not to do and what
mirrors.
to eat and what not to eat,
Hmm.
and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So it's
But he does look good in
very,
Armani.
He does.
yes. There's a lot of meta, isn't, I mean, like, there's a lot of like cheating the camera and things like that that happen in it. But I mean, that's, again, that should be on par with this type of a movie. It is a very tongue-in-cheek, spoofy movie, and maybe that's what, like, kids of the day loved about it, is that it's not, it doesn't really, it's
Hmm.
just goofy, right? There's a lot of it that's
Yeah.
just goofy. Him slamming into trees.
I feel
No
like
one takes
there's
anybody,
no movies
seriously.
like this anymore. I
Right,
don't
and it's
remember the
so
last time
fun.
there was just like a fun, cheesy movie that came out.
Brink.
Okay, that I
This
think
time
that
he
came out
brought it
around
up.
the same time as this movie, so that doesn't
Yeah,
work.
I just fun and cheesy, I guess. It's at least half of that. What were you gonna say, Emma?
No, that's a thing, and you know, that's it might seem like a little, stupid, maybe some of the jokes, but like it's just fun. It's just plain fun, and there is nothing wrong with that. And we need more movies like this, We do. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Um, so again, after he gets shot, and they go get on the plane and they go to San Francisco, and he's there. There's the problem that they've left behind some bad guys, and the bad guys are trying to get to Ape, and because they've now decided, well, wait a minute, there's this white ape. That's just a man. We can't do anything with that. That's not a big deal. But we also have now this talking ape, and that one we can make some money on. So let's go ahead and like hunt him down and capture him. And then they spend the back half of the movie just carrying him in a cage from one side of the island to the next.
Or around the
And then
mountain
right
six
back to the
times.
house.
Yeah. So that's a kind of a fun feature of that. But there's so many, I don't want to say stars in this movie, because it's not really about stars. It's about these people that I recognize, or these people that I know.
Hmm.
So when you're watching this movie and you see, okay, it's Brendan Fraser and Thomas Hayden Church and Leslie Mann, but you've also got Holland Taylor from Two and a Half Men that played the mom on there. She plays her mom in this. John Cleese, like we talked about, and then Richard Roundtree. Richard Roundtree is in this. What? Like, that's
Who is that?
crazy. Richard Roundtree was the guy who played Kwame. He was like the guy who the led the expedition
What
for
else was
her.
he in?
It was just this. This was the only movie that he was ever really in. But
Wow, all these stars. course. Richard Roundtree. I'm like,
No, I
don't
just
know
don't
who
want
that
to.
is.
Um, he's been around forever. He played Shaft. Have you ever heard of the character Shaft?
Just talking about
Yes.
Shaft.
Shut your mouth. Yes, he played Shaft, and so that like there was like Shaft in Africa. That was Richard Roundtree. He used
Wow.
to do like he was on a whole bunch of like 80s shows like Magnum PI and The Love Boat and Chips and things like that. And then I'm looking back through at some of the other stuff that he's done more recently, but like he was in A Different World, he was on Amen, he was in MacGyver. Just like he just shows up from time to time, but I mean, he's a big deal, and the fact that he was in this, I think, is pretty cool.
Okay.
There you go. So again, kind of a big cast. So they come back to San Francisco. He's getting adapted to being there, and the mom is like, "No, we won't have this. We want Lyle. We want Lyle. Where is he? Oh, I'm sorry, he's in a prison. I'm sure he'll show up somewhere." No one really seems to be too worried about getting Lyle out of prison, do they?
No. No.
No, not a big deal. So Lyle's back in prison, apparently making friends, and so when Ape is getting caught, he has Tuki send word to George. Basically, he knows exactly where George is. I don't know why. So
Magically.
he flies to San Francisco and finds the apartment. And is like, hey, Ape's in trouble, but he says it Tuki, and he's like, what? Like, Lassie, what? Timmy fell down the well. And then he goes. He ends up going back, but at this point he's already had his feelings hurt because mom doesn't like him and tells him you're never going to be good enough for our daughter Ursula, so you might as well just go back to where you came from. So he's not feeling wanted. He's not feeling like he fits in. He goes back. This is again, tale as old as time.
True as it can be.
Yeah. So I
Can't
mean, the
sing
Beast
it.
goes back to his
No
castle.
copyright
Yeah,
strikes.
we don't want to sing it. We don't want to do that.
Are you
But
trying to
it
make a
is
Beauty and the Beast comparison? Because I was making that with Rey and Kylo when we talked about Star Wars.
sure. That's what's happening. It's fine. Um, but the other thing is there's a plot device that they use in this with a narrator, which
I love the
is
narrator.
very
Brilliant.
is very interesting. So the guy who plays the narrator is Keith Scott, who is a big Australian voice actor. You know, I'm sure Emma, you've heard of The Adventures of Blinky Bill. He was in that. No, you haven't.
No,
Nobody's heard of that.
actually, I have not.
The Magic Pudding. Have you heard of that? He was in that. You know what? Did you ever see George of the Jungle? He was the narrator.
Oh yeah, you know.
Yep, that's the one.
Oh,
That's the one.
wow.
We did it. No, he is apparently a very big deal, and so it's neat, and he does a great job. And it's another part of it that makes it feel so much like the original cartoon. And if you haven't watched it, you can go to YouTube and just search George of the Jungle cartoon 1967 and find it. But that's the thing is we've got a 1967 one, but in 2007. Oops, they did it again. There was another George of the Jungle cartoon. Like, don't
What?
mistake this one for the
Wow.
1967. Don't do that.
This one is
Um,
significantly skinnier.
Yes. His weight fluctuated in this one. There were some pictures of him where he was like more, kind of larger, like more built. But yeah, this was the George of the Jungle on Cartoon Network.
I don't like it.
Somebody was like, "Hey, we should do that," and it was interesting to me. I'm probably the only person that's ever picked this out in the history of man. 1967 was the original George of the Jungle. 1997 was this George
Oh.
of the Jungle. And 2007, what? Was George of the Jungle the cartoon?
7.
Yeah.
And now we're here in 2023.
2023. Yeah, exactly. 2023 talking about it. Which is why I
Add
think
up 2, 0, 2, and 3 it equals 7.
But that's probably most likely
That's
why this
true.
movie didn't work out at all. This George of the Jungle 2
Who
movie
is that
with
guy?
yeah, not Brendan Fraser, not even Brendan Fraser. It's not even either of those guys. 2003, same basic length of movie, an hour and 29 minutes. That's Angus T. Jones, by the way, the kid from Two
Hmm.
and a Half Men. So now we
Yep.
have a tie because Holland Taylor from Two and a Half Men was the mom in the first one, and Angus T. Jones plays Little George in the second one. So there was like no there was one, I think one person, actually two people, but one person of note in both of these movies. Thomas Hayden Church.
Was
He was the
Ursula
get.
the
They
same?
probably put all their money into Thomas Hayden Church, and they couldn't get Leslie Mann back, so they got Julie Benz to play that character. And yeah,
Probably.
uh, yeah, probably what happened. But even Angus T. Jones looks excited to be in this movie, doesn't he? I mean, the kid, like, no. So this was, you might ask, your parents or your grandparents about this, kids, but there was a thing called straight to DVD or straight to VHS, and that was before
That
there was
makes
a thing
sense.
such as streaming or Disneyplus, where
Heck
people
yeah.
were like, "Hey, we made a little bit of money on this movie. We can make an even cheaper version and make just a tad more."
Right.
Return of Jafar was the first one, and we did a review on Deep in the Plus of Return of Jafar, and it was not great, and it was not the original, and it was not Robin Williams, and
Nope.
yeah, and
No.
so a lot of times you don't get the entire crew back for the second movie, but to have none of the crew back 6 years later,
We
Yeah.
got one.
yeah, you got Tom. Well, and also her best friend, I think Betsy, was like the one who was so enamored by George's
George.
loincloth. Yeah.
Hmm.
That one, she I think was in both movies too. So
Mm.
gotta have some continuity, right?
Cool.
And the logo
Just a
looks
little.
similar. That's about it. So so
Did they
when we're
get John
watching,
Cleese back to voice Ape?
no, I don't think they did. Um,
Really? Huh.
Yeah. So when we're watching these movies and we're talking about these movies, and again, thank you guys for doing that, and thank you guys for watching, and please give us a like and a thumbs up as people makes it easier to find us. I'm always asked by Desi, can we have trivia? Can you ask us some trivia questions? And Desi, by golly, I'm
I'm always
always
asking that.
happy to help you out. Always happy to help you out because I know you love to challenge yourself. That's why you
I
do
do.
this
Yep.
week in and week out. You like to challenge yourself.
This is my 30th episode.
I have, well, and again, so now you know all that the questions I could possibly ask you, so you were ready to rock here.
You'd think. You
Yeah,
would think.
yep. So
And
so
yet.
here so you got Emma for backup, so it's all good.
Well,
Good.
She lives and breathes this movie, so it's all good. So
sure.
I'm gonna ask you some questions. Some of them are gonna be really super easy, and then some of them are not. You ready?
Yep.
Okay.
More or less.
When Lyle shows up in the beginning of the movie, he gets on his cell phone, which is one of those old school flip bricks that they used to have back in the day, and he tries to make a reservation at what hotel?
Hilton.
Wow. It was indeed the Hilton. Can you tell me which Hilton?
Zimbabwe Hilton.
That's a really good guess, but no. The Nairobi Hilton. But you got Hilton,
Oh.
so good for you. Way to guess. Like you're like, okay, what could be generically anywhere? Hilton. This
Hilton.
episode of Deep in the Plus brought to you by Hilton. It's not. It's not. They give us nothing. They give us no money. Rosita is right. Basically, at this point, it's brought to us
Animal
by Rosita.
Kingdom Lodge.
True.
Yes. Okay. Um, once he gets to San Francisco, there's a cable car because there's always a cable car. That's how you know. It's either they show you hills or they show you a cable car. What billboard's on the back of that cable car?
Rice
I did not
Aroni.
pay attention.
That is correct. It is rice-a-roni.
Is it really rice-a-roni? That was just a
Yes.
guess.
And would you like to tell people why it would be rice-a-roni?
Because it's a San Francisco treat.
I love that you know that. I love that you know that.
That's the
Yes.
only reason it was my
All right.
guess.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was really 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 neat. Anyway, so there you go. You're 2 for 2.
And
You were just
what was
you were
he
just
eating when he was on top of it?
McDonald's.
McDonald's.
Ah, okay.
The theme song for this is sung by a band of the era that it was in.
Oh, boy.
Who was the band that sang the theme song, this version of George of the Jungle?
The Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
That's the impression that I get, but no, it's you get what I did there?
I
No?
do. Blink 182.
Hmm.
It'd be funny if it was Blink 182.
If I told you another song they sang, would you be able to figure it out?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Lump.
Oh, she's lump. Okay, I know the song. I can't think of.
Arch Fox
It's
said
not the
Hanson.
presidents of the United States, is it?
It is the presidents of the United States. Yes. Yep, they did
Hey,
the
there
theme
you go.
song. Yep. Yeah, there you go.
I love 90s
Kate
music.
Kate guessed
And
Backstreet.
movies.
I wish it was Backstreet. I wish it was Backstreet.
I
It would have been.
wish.
Oof. This would have been.
Because NSYNC did the Tarzan soundtrack, so it would have only made
Yes.
sense to have Backstreet Boys do this one.
It would have only made sense. Yeah. That's yeah. There's a way that they communicate in the jungle. There's an alert that they send. What is that alert or that communication that they send through the jungle?
It's the bongo something. It's called
You absolutely have half of it.
I feel like the other half starts with the B. It would only make sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you out of your misery on that one. It's a
Thank you.
bongogram. It's a bongogram.
Oh,
Bongo
Bongogram.
Graham.
Okay.
I was
Yep,
also
it's a
trying to
bongogram.
think of something that started with a B that would go with
But it's very
bongo.
similar to the whole like trash in the camp with like Turk and all of them because they're beating on the bongos and
I'd
you
like
know,
to point out this movie came out first, so they were just
you can
copying.
absolutely point that out. You're welcome to point that out. Are you saying that this was the blueprint that Phil Collins used to make Trash in the Camp?
100%.
That feels right. That feels right. The I got 3 more for you. He sees a coffee commercial and decides he's going to try coffee, but he doesn't know how to consume coffee, so he just
yeah.
eats it. The brand of coffee she has in her cabinet is the same as the brand of coffee that they advertise. What is that brand of coffee?
Chock
Chock
full of
full of
nuts.
nuts.
Too easy. Too easy. When he is saving the guy on the big rope bridge, which of course is obviously this entire setup of the rope bridge was just so we could talk about the Golden Gate Bridge as a big rope bridge. When he saves the parachuter off the big rope bridge, there's a TV channel that is covering this news. You see them on the mic flags, the little crawl at the bottom, and on the copter. What is the TV station that is covering this bridge rescue?
I
Channel
have
7.
No clue.
Why would you say that?
I don't know.
Just because it's 7, and we've talked about 1997 and all, and 7's the big. It's 7. Yeah, it is. It is Channel 7. That's why I
Wow,
thought
good
that might
for
stand
you,
out.
Emma.
That's a complete
Let's go.
guess.
I'm
Complete
impressed.
guess. Last question. Here it is. You ready? This is really easy. So easy. This is a layup. This is so
Oh,
easy.
no.
Oh boy.
At the very end of the movie, Ape has decided that he's going to be a big Vegas sensation, and he is making it big in Vegas, and he is singing what song?
My Way.
Boom. I told you it was going to be easy right there. You got it. There you go. So, I mean, again, not too painful, right? I mean, you got pretty much all of them. I'm surprised you didn't get Bongogram. Like, that's the one that I was like, because they talk about it all the way through, and I almost didn't even put that in. I was like, they're going to know that one. That's too easy.
Nah.
That's too easy. So thank you for playing. Dawn also got it as My Way. So thank you guys for playing along at home. We appreciate it. And, if you're playing along, go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. At this point, is there anything, like we've talked about the music, we've talked about the actors, and we've talked about the basic story. Obviously, the wrap up at the end is that he goes back to save Ape. He puts on his Nike running shoes. They better have gotten some money out of that one. That's all I got to say, because there's no reason for that to have happened the way it did. And he runs across the entire jungle, I guess, in order to get caught up with Ape. And because Ape has been so smart, he's basically led them back to the treehouse. So the whole thing takes place back at the treehouse, which again makes me think, wow, what a cost-saving feature is that. Most of the things happen either in some place in San Francisco that already exists, or at George's treehouse. So they're there, and they're having this kind of final act, and he calls in the ninja apes via bongogram. I don't know if they're ninja or they're supposed to be like a gang, but they've got these red scarves around their heads, and they come in and basically they finish everybody off. So I feel like he cheated a little bit, but that's fine.
He's got to do what he's got to do.
Yep. And he and Not Jane move into his treehouse and have a kid, and he lifts him up at the end like the Lion King, and then Ape stays in Vegas and makes it big his way, and that's basically the end of it. Everybody lives happily ever after, except for Lyle, I guess.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I didn't see the second movie. Maybe Lyle winds up happily ever after. I have no idea.
Let's wrap this up, and we'll reconvene to talk about the second movie immediately after this. Let's just all watch it. I don't think that's going to be on our list.
The next Disneyplus is a George of the Jungle 2 live stream.
No, thank you.
Jeez.
No, thank you. But now that you bring it up, let's talk about what's coming up on Deep in the Plus, because last week we did The Greatest Showman, and this week we're doing George of the Jungle. Next week we're doing Treasure Planet. Planet. We're going to try to figure out with Treasure Planet why it didn't make a bunch of money. And then on March 15th for St. Patrick's Day, St. Patrick himself will be, Patrick Hackett will be on the show talking about The Happiest Millionaire. This will be our third St. Patrick's Day event from Deep in the Plus with me and Patrick. And then coming soon, National Treasure, Tron, the original, like we were talking about earlier, Mrs. Doubtfire. And then we're going to, on May the 3rd, we're going to do the entire recap of season 1 of season 3 of The Mandalorian, which started episode 1 today.
Yes.
And I already watched.
I haven't watched it yet, but I will.
Yeah. So, and again, a lot of those suggestions came from our viewers, our Wigs members. Thank you guys so much for doing that. We want to do, there's a ton of stuff on Disney Plus, and again, we've already done 150. This 151st review. So please, if you have thoughts of things that you'd love to see us review, I would be, just leave it in the comments below. We would love to know your thoughts and what we can do to get you into a great movie, because we're always looking for ideas. But again, that throwbacks, there's a ton of those that we've already done, and it's just funny to me. Like if you go to search on Disney Plus, and you go to, I think it's other collections, and you go to this is throwbacks. I'll show you what this looks like right here. If you look at the throwbacks live action movies, we've done Rocketeer, Willow, Remember the Titans, Splash, Roger Rabbit. We have not done Iron Will. I'm not sure if people would get excited about that. We did not do the live action 101 Dalmatians. The fact that Sister Act 2 Back in the Habit is on here, I don't know.
What about Sister Act 1? How come it highlights Sister
like,
Act 2?
Yeah, what about the OG?
So there's a lot of these that we
Turner
have
and
already
Hooch.
done. So, and then if you go down
Have we
to
done Turner and Hooch?
the original movies, you know,
Yay,
there's this.
Brink.
No, we haven't done Turner and Hooch, and they went to the trouble to make a spin-off show, so on Disneyplus. So we should probably talk about that sometime. So, yeah, we did a review of Holes. I see them talking about that in the chat there too. And Cool Runnings. Pete Carney and I did Cool Runnings. Could never get anybody to do Mighty Ducks, so that's one maybe someday we'll end up doing.
Mighty Ducks.
There's a lot of Lindsay on here, so we did Freaky Friday and
Yes.
and we did Parent Trap. And we did Herbie Goes Bananas with the gentleman who played Paco in that movie. So a lot of these we have done, but we will continue to do more. And again, give us your ideas below. So now let's wrap it up here. I need to know. Again, we've talked about this movie. We've talked about its sequels and the source material and all that stuff. But now I need to know, Desi, I'm going to start with you. This is really important. Would you like Emma to go first?
Sure.
Wow. Okay.
Then Emma, would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I would actually. I was pleasantly surprised with how much fun I had watching this movie. And yeah, I just had a really good time and just laughed a lot. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, okay. And Desi?
Yes, absolutely. We need more movies like this today. We need fun, cheesy, campy, just like smile on your face, good time movies. I don't remember the last time one of those came out. Everything now is like, oh, we got to be gritty, we got to be serious. Everything, like, even Marvel movies, which are supposed to be based off of comic books, I feel like are starting to take themselves really seriously. Let's just have fun. Let's have a good old time and just like, who cares about trying to I don't know, trying to be too realistic or gritty or everything's got to be dark. Yeah, let's have fun. Let's have a good time and have more of these movies, please. And I am so glad that Brendan Fraser is making a comeback because he really is a great actor.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. Yeah, and honestly, that's why. I mean, it's been a week for me, so I was like, let's just watch something fun. And again, because it was brought up by our Wigs members from the last show, I said, let's just do this. Let's watch George of the Jungle, and it was an easy watch. It was an hour and a half, basically. It was neat going back to it to be able to see the people. Like I said, all these actors that I know, they're not necessarily the most famous actors, but being able to see these actors and seeing them when they were 25 years younger, it was actually a neat thing to go back and watch. So there's nothing wrong with this movie. I think it holds up. I think that it does, it is exactly what we think it should be, is a goofy movie. I mean, it's not a goofy movie. It's not that one. We did a review of that one separately.
Episode 2.
Yeah, Powerline is not in this at all. I don't want you to walk away from here thinking that. But it is. It does ask nothing of you. It's just sit down and watch it and just just enjoy it. And maybe George of the Jungle 2 will be that as well. I'm not sure I'll ever find out. But
Probably not.
But maybe someday, if we get through the rest of Disneyplus in its entirety, we may roll up.
And also re-premiere Brink.
Yeah, re-premiere Brink. Watch Bride of Boogity, because we did Mr. Boogity. We'll do Bride of Boogity. There's like at least 2 more Xenons we got to watch.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot to do. So, maybe we'll get around to it. Maybe we won't. But again, I'd love for everybody to let us know in the comments below, like what things that, tell us what you think about this movie, or tell us what other movies you'd like us to review. So don't forget that coming up this week we have Disney Entertainment News Today dropped yesterday, so if you haven't checked it out, it is on this channel. And then Thursday night is News Tonight, and then Sunday night will be the return of Park Center. Thank you guys to everyone who reached out and said, "Hey, like, where y'all been?" But I mean, we had Super Bowl and we had President's Day weekend, but we are going to be back, and March Madness is coming. We always talk about March Madness, so please join us for Park Center. And then again, like I said, deep in the plus. Next week we're going to be doing Treasure Planet. Lots of stuff going on. Desi, thank you. Appreciate you being on here. I know you've got a very busy schedule. Thanks for potting those plants and talking about Tarzan and Emma. Thanks for making up your bed. We appreciate it.
Actually,
I
I
did
did
not
have
make
to
up
make up
mine.
my bed for this show, so you're welcome. It's been a week, y'all. It's audition season. It's nuts.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thanks everyone for watching. Again, to our WIGS members, we love our WIGS, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. You can check us out at patreon.com/WDWNT if you want to find out more, and we hope you do. But again, to all of our WIGS members who've been here tonight, Stephen, all the people in chat here, like Katie and Ronald and Stephen and Kate and Arch Fox and Coach and Dawn and Rosita and Adam. Thank you all so much for being with us, for chatting along. We've been watching, and we appreciate you joining in, and we will see you next time.